Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and leadership. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, the Healthcare Now radio network, and the new Health Podcast Network. I could not be more excited for this show, my 351st episode. And again, I don't have one, but two of my show's most frequent guests back to continue our conversation about the launch of their latest masterpiece, Transform. Welcome back to the show, John Halamka and Paul Cerrato. Gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks so much, and congrats on 351.
Thank you. It's a great number. Great number. Before we dive into this amazing book, and I'm going to brag on it a little bit, but I love Unity Farm Sanctuary. I never have my dates right because timing is, life is fantastic, but timing just goes by so fast. How long have you had Unity Farm Sanctuary, John?
And so we started in 2012, and it really has two major events in history. When my wife was diagnosed with stage 3A breast cancer, she wanted to leave something behind. And so that was the impetus for putting the organization together. But then 2016 was the date where the very large animals started to arrive. And of course, 3,000-pound Dudley, Scottish Highland Bull, celebrates his 10th birthday on June 7th.
He is beautiful. So I will tell everybody, check out Unity Farm Sanctuary. Look for Dudley specifically because he's a beautiful animal. But obviously all the amazing animals. And if I have my numbers right, 400, John, over 400?
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. And Paul, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up your illustrious music career. And you said 40 years you've been doing your recording? How long have you been doing your recording?
Well, I've been running the studio for about 20 years. I've been
20
a
years.
musician for about 40 years.
That's it. Love it. Excellent. Transform, your new book. Thank you for using my platform to launch it again. You guys are on your 7th book. I think you've launched at least 5 on my platform, if not all of them. So exciting time as always. What was the most fun about this book? And then also, why this book? Why now? So I'll start off with you, Paul.
Well, as far as fun, it's fun to take hard ideas and convert them into plain English. Fun, it's a challenge, but it's a learning experience. And as far as why now, AI is in the news like it's never been before. Ever since ChatGPT exploded on the scene, it's like every business, small, large, every government facility is getting into AI. So there really is a need for the public to understand at a much deeper level what AI is capable of and what harm it can do.
Amen. It's excellent.
Well, Paul, shouldn't it be the right thing to do that we ask generative AI that question to see what it tells us the response is?
There you go.
And I just did it, of course. While people recognize the potential benefits of AI, there's significant ambivalence and skepticism about its use. Studies show the majority of people are concerned about risks outweighing potential benefits. And that's why now, because we need to show the public with guidelines and guardrails, there are benefits to be had.
Excellent point. And yeah, I mean, Paul, you made me think of this too, is I use AI at every turn in running my companies and certainly me personally, my personal life, but also business. I can't fathom not using some type of AI tool to help me optimize my time, strategy, process, everything. And that's just for me as a simple business owner and stuff like that, but never mind providing the most optimized care and at scale too, John, to your point, global scale, the most efficient and effective healthcare. So,
and sometimes it's much faster than doing a Google search, and it's faster than using a user manual. So, how can you resist?
It is, but I asked ChatGPT how many books you guys have written, and it said at least 4 or 5, so it was wrong.
That's the other problem. It's never up to date.
Yeah, it was. I was not happy with it when it gave me that bad information. But anyhow, so use it, yes. But to John's point, we're getting there, and that's why now. So, I guess now diving into the technology piece, what are some of the AI fueled algorithm solutions that the Mayo Clinic platform and your partners are developing?
For me, one of the most impressive developments is the use of neural networks to help diagnose colorectal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
This is the research is overwhelmingly positive. Algorithms are being used by Mayo Clinic gastroenterologists to increase the number of tiny polyps that are detected, and sometimes human endoscopists miss these things. So with the right algorithms, they're increasing the rate of detection. So that's one of many.
And Paul, that's such a salient example. When I was at Yale giving a lecture earlier in the week, one of my close colleagues told me that she's a 40-ish-year-old person who has a very significant history of being an athlete of world-class nature and a great diet, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. So why should a 40-year-old woman who's an athlete with a great diet be diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer? One hopes the algorithms that look at liquid biopsies, that is the cells in the blood, the images that we get, the endoscopy or colonoscopy, would prevent stage 4 colon cancer diagnosis, finding it at stage 0 or
Yeah.
predicting it before it happens.
It's a great point. What's the footprint of Mayo Clinic? 'Cause I have not read up on that recently. I mean, because I'm in Sarasota here in Florida. I know you guys are in the Jacksonville area, I believe, at least. But where's what's the footprint of Mayo Clinic?
Well, so many ways to say footprint. So understand that Mayo Clinic has been around over 150 years. It has destination medical centers in Minnesota, Florida, and Arizona.
Okay.
It has about 83,000 employees. But Mayo is just different than most organizations because it is very concerned about putting the patient first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, it does research. Yes, it does education, but it's well known for bringing together specialists on a single team to address the complete needs of the patient.
I love it. Excellent. So, the Mayo Clinic platform has a tool called Validate. What is its purpose?
So once again, we get back to the issue of a lot of poorly vetted algorithms have surfaced. Some of them are being used by clinicians without enough validation. So
Mm-hmm.
we created a tool called Validate.
Yep.
And essentially, it's a statistical analysis of these algorithms to detect bias, to look for specificity, sensitivity, areas under the curve, all these various statistical tools to help validate and to help developers create a model that is truly trustworthy and truly accurate.
Well,
Sounds familiar.
so just as a general comment, I talked about soup and the idea that you would want to look at the ingredients of soup, you'd want to look at a nutrition label. So in AI, we look at some of these algorithms mathematically, as Paul has described, and that starts with enumerating the data that went into it, the
Mhm.
ingredients. But to understand if that soup is delicious or not, it needs to be tasted.
Yeah.
And the validation process looks beyond just the data that was used to create an algorithm, but looks at its performance in the real world.
Yep. And the first person ever to bring up AI bias was you, John. This is in my think tank in 2019, right before COVID. We knew before COVID, quote unquote, hit, but I that think tank November of 19. And you brought up AI bias. That's the very first time I ever heard it. It made a lot of sense. So, I mean, I think Validate is probably one of your babies. Is that true, John? That concept?
Well, remember, everything we do at Mayo is bringing together teams of experts. And I think just the recognition was that in a life cycle that starts with data, produces an algorithm, requires validation of the algorithm, deployment and ongoing monitoring, that piece to validate was missing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. you also have a program called Deploy. What is that about? I love this best practice. So tell us about that.
John?
Of course. So I have been working in this industry for 40 years. And I think you could say, Justin, that electronic health record vendors create products that are fit for purpose, help with regulatory compliance, but they aren't necessarily so easy to enhance and modify and integrate with.
Right. Yeah.
And so Deploy's idea is, can you, for any electronic health record, put a sidecar next to the electronic health record, and in the context of a patient and a user, provide AI enhancement, describing to the clinician, oh, consider this test, consider that diagnosis.
Yep.
And oh, here's some literature you might find useful. And so Deploy is that sidecar. And it is EHR neutral, and it gives us a capacity to integrate into your workflow without requiring approval of any EHR vendor.
And this is available only within Mayo Clinic, or is this the best practice that you're going to share outside of Mayo Clinic, or how does that work? I love it.
So remember that what Mayo Clinic Platform does is it assembles collaborators around the world. It assembles tool sets. And so this is one of our offerings, one of our programs. So it is available globally.
Love that. Love that. So generative AI, we've talked about that here. Predictive AI and generative AI, large language models, ChatGPT, all of the news. Explain, I guess, to the layman person, this is what your book does really, really well. That's why I want to kind of call this out now. Explain the potential risks and benefits of these to us as consumers, innovators, but as a society. And again, your book does a great job of really simplifying these complex strategies and complex terms for everyone. So yeah, but let's take a moment now. So I guess, John, why don't you start off here?
Right. Well, so Mayo, just to give you an example, receives 12 million pages of PDFs every year, mostly from patients referred, a lot of international patients.
Mm-hmm.
Humans really can't read 12 million pages of PDFs so easily, but a generative AI can read the 12 million pages, summarize it, put it into a standard format, and inform the doctor and nurse what are the major issues with this patient you're about to see.
Yeah. Love that. Yep. Paul, what would you like to, anything else you mentioned about generative AI and large language models and ChatGPT?
Sometimes it's been compared to a Siri on steroids or Alexa on steroids. So it can generate very, very impressive human-like text. So impressive that some people forget that it's a machine and it's not a human being. So there's a couple of books out in which it's been used by physicians to detect rare genetic disorders. One particular pediatric endocrinologist that we talk about was able to diagnose a rare genetic disorder with the help of ChatGPT. And he readily admits that the vast majority of physicians would not have made that diagnosis without ChatGPT, which in itself is pretty impressive. But on the other hand, there's the fact that ChatGPT uses as its data set the entire internet, and the entire internet is filled with gems as well as garbage.
Yeah.
So there's always that possibility of hallucinations, and it has happened often. So one of the solutions is to create a large language model that uses a better data set. So a data set that's composed of all PubMed research, or New England Journal of Medicine articles and JAMA articles and so on. Because it's a more reliable source of information, you're less likely to get bizarre answers from it. So that's the direction that we're going in Mayo Clinic, and several other vendors, like Open Evidence is another group that we've been working with to create a specialized large language model that would give us more reliable information.
And this is something, this is not, first of all, it's a great, thank you for describing it like that. Cause I mean, this is not for just you or just Mayo Clinic or even large companies. I actually use LLMs in my company, in my business, even in my small business, you know, based on the client or the situation, I use LLMs for each one because to your exact point, I can make those expert sources, which then give you really credible, reliable data. Everybody can use large language models or LLMs. So just as a side note for my audience, and thank you, Paul, for so eloquently stating that.
One last thing that I did want to mention about them. If you have to use a generic large language model like ChatGPT, you also need to do what's sometimes referred to as prompt engineering, which is asking questions after you ask the first question. So, for instance, I might ask, what's the value of intermittent fasting in weight loss? And it'll create a bunch of answers. But then I'll ask, are these answers from peer-reviewed medical journals? And sometimes it'll say, oops, they're not.
Right.
And then I'll say, okay, well, I only want those answers. And then you continue to refine your prompts so that you get closer and closer to the real truth.
It's a great way to use AI and certainly ChatGPT. And so for our listeners, just my team does that prompt response, and it works really, really well. So, and kind of following this path, what are some of the essential guardrails, in your opinion, for responsibly deploying AI in healthcare in America, as well as globally? I guess, John, I know you speak to that. So,
Well, so imagine there is an algorithm that works really well to diagnose or predict cardiac disease, and it works for people with a body mass index below 31. It really doesn't work so well with those with a body mass index above 35. Is it ethical to use? Well, yes, if your patient has a body mass index below 31.
right.
So the problem is that as we've been talking about validation and qualification, it's going to give us a context for where this particular algorithm will do wonders and where it potentially could do harm, so that it's only used in that right circumstance.
That's excellent. Excellent. Anything you'd add on to that, Paul?
No, that sums it up nicely.
Perfect. And for those that may have tuned in a little late, my special guests today are Dr. John Halamka and Mr. Paul Cerrato, and we're discussing their new masterpiece, Transform, their 7th book together. So kind of moving into the next segment here, how does personalized genomics, the revolution, fit into the future of digital health? I mean, because we've heard a lot about this, and now we're mixing personalized genomics into AI and generative AI at some point. So, where's the future here, John?
So you may remember that I was the second human sequenced in the Personal Genome Project, and so I know my 3 billion base pairs, which are probabilistic, not deterministic. It tells you what diseases I might develop.
Yep.
Well, there is a concern when you look at my genome that prostate cancer, virulent prostate cancer, is a risk for me. But I'm a vegan with no family history of heart disease and no genetic proclivity for heart disease. So if I go to a primary caregiver, why should they do an EKG? Why should they measure my cholesterol? They should measure my PSA, right? And so that's what I think we're going to see AI help with, is looking at the corpus of who you are, your phenotype, your genome, and the way you live, what you eat, and that kind of thing, and then help figure out the right care journey for you.
Excellent. Excellent. Anything you want to add to that, Paul?
Yeah, one of the most impressive things in my mind about the genomics revolution and how it can personalize care is an area called pharmacogenomics.
Sure.
So right now we know that certain drugs are bad news for people who have a particular genetic profile. So it makes sense for to do this type of genomic profiling, so that patients with the risk are not given that drug. Basically, we're not at the point yet where pharmacogenomic testing is universally available, but I think eventually we need to get there.
Absolutely. And then kind of following this train of thought on, social determinants of health, how does that fit into this conversation? I mean, I guess SDOH has been around for a long time, but we're really starting to make some demonstrable advances, in my opinion. But how does this all fit together in health IT and digital health with AI?
Well, let me just start with two observations. So the first is that if you create an AI model, and let's imagine it is those people who can travel, those people who have education or income, you may create a model that is so biased that if you change the social determinants of health, it will not be effective.
Right.
So what Mayo has tried to do in its development of models is it records some 40 different social determinants of health that we infer from the address you live at. We know a bit about where are the grocery stores, what's the access to primary care, what are the crime statistics. And so in that way, the models become much better performing. But the caveat would be self-report of social determinants of health is not always great. We have to be very careful about the data that we use. If it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday and you have abdominal pain and somebody is asking you, so Justin, do you consider yourself Hispanic? Well, my bet is the answer isn't going to be so great. You just want to get into the emergency room.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Very true. Your thoughts, Paul? Anything you're going to add to that?
I was making a list of all the different social determinants of health that are relevant. Economic stability, obviously, what kind of educational access you have, what level of education you've had, what's your community context. Are you living in what's sometimes referred to as a food desert, where there's virtually no fresh fruits and vegetables available? And those social determinants of health clearly have had an impact in the United States, in different parts of the United States. One of the statistics that we mentioned in the book is the average person in Mississippi will not make it past the age of 72. Right. If they lived in Bangladesh, the average lifespan would be 72. What's wrong with those numbers? This is supposed to be one of the richest nations in the world. Right. Life expectancy in Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Louisiana is less than 74. But if you live in Japan, Australia, or South Korea, you're typically going to live to 84 or beyond. Clearly, social determinants of health are a major issue to deal with.
Very, very true. And the Centurion, I think, yeah, the largest, well, the blue zones. I remember actually talking to John about blue zones back in the day as well, and Centurions and all that good stuff. But I completely agree. In the last couple of minutes here, maybe 60 seconds each, I always love to end, begin to end on a very positive note. So looking into the crystal ball, start off with you, Paul. What are you most excited about over the next couple of years in healthcare?
Well, once again, it's about generative AI, although it can be disastrous in some respects. I've been following this field for the last couple of years. Initially, you would see kind of wishy-washy studies where they did a retrospective analysis to suggest that a large language model would work. But over the last couple of years, I've been seeing better quality studies, prospective studies, randomized controlled studies. This is the kind of gold standards that are needed in order to convince the world, especially healthcare professionals, that these tools are ready to use. So that's what I see as being in the near future.
Love it. John?
Well, having done this for 4 decades, we've had challenges with data availability and data quality, compute power availability, tool sets. Mm-hmm. We are now at a stage where the data is good enough. The data is global. The tools are good enough, and the compute is nearly infinite. So I think 2025 and beyond is going to be truly a golden age for innovation of predictive and generative AI.
I love it. Very well said. Paul, where can listeners find this book? First of all, I want to take a second. This book was written, this was a consumer-facing book where a lot of your other books have been written for professionals, certainly on the inside of healthcare and providers. But this book was written towards a consumer-facing audience, and it's written at such a level that anybody can understand it. These theories and philosophies might be complex, and the topics are complex, but the way you describe it is simplistic, and you make it so everybody can read it and everybody can understand it and everybody can learn, which is awesome. Where can people find this book, Paul, and then also follow your work? And maybe John can follow up with that too.
So Amazon has the book. It's available there. Also, Mayo Clinic Publishing has its own site where it's available. And then a lot of what we talk about in the book is also available in our weekly columns, which are on the Mayo Clinic Platform website.
Excellent, excellent.
And of course, Justin, since Paul and I write and speak every day, just use generative AI, and I'm sure you'll find us.
Very, very true. And I also noticed there's the Library of Congress listing in the book as well. When I was going through it, how do you list it with the Library of Congress? How does that work? Or Paul, how do you guys know that? Do you know?
I think that's just a standard requirement for all books to go through to get a code that, and I believe every book has a Library of Congress code associated with it.
Very cool. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's always an honor and a pleasure to have you on air. And I look forward to your 8th book and talking about that in due time. So
excellent.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks so much.
Again.
We'll see you soon.
Always, my friend. And thank you to everybody for listening, and also for all of you that voted us 2024 Podcast of the Year. We are extremely grateful. Please tune into my shows and broadcasts weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on LinkedIn at Justin T. Barnes, or track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor, and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so I can respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, all my shows are posted at YouTube, Spotify, Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Megaphone, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn. And check out some of the new content we just published at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.